I see a lot of my friends using and applying sunscreen the wrong way, so I decided to put together a list of very common mistakes. I wanted to start from the bottom of the least common mistakes to the top, which is the most common mistakes, because my goal is to get you to apply sunscreen the correct way to avoid any wrinkles and, of course, those sunburns. So I'm going to start my countdown from the least common mistakes to the most common mistakes, and there's 15 of them, so stick with me to the end. Mistake number 15. Avoid applying sunscreen to wet skin. Not only will your sunscreen not stick because it will be, slimy and wet, it won't rub in as well, but worse than that, actually the sunscreen won't be able to form a protective film on your skin and it actually won't work as well. So do everything you can to apply sunscreen to dry skin. That way you're getting the best protection and the best absorption. Mistake number 14, avoid using sunscreen sticks. I know these are really fun and convenient and kids love them, but I really don't recommend them. And the reason why is I've seen people, actually my friends, with literally burns that look like American flags on their legs. It's not a good look. And it leads to streaky burns and just like you don't know how much you're applying because it's a stick form. And so you don't know that you're getting the adequate amount of sunscreen and the adequate coverage. So I always err on the side of caution and say, if you want to use a sunscreen stick, then use it in addition to sunscreen lotion or cream, but don't make that your only source of sunscreen. Mistake number 13, avoid using sunscreen sprays directly on your face. If you are someone that enjoys using sunscreen sprays, which many people do because they're convenient and fun to use, then at least for your face, spray it into your hand first and then apply it to your face. And at that point, you might as well just use a sunscreen spray or cream because it's essentially the same thing. The key to using sunscreen sprays is spray them outdoors where it's not windy. Spray them very close to your skin so you can make sure they're actually getting on your skin. Spray them away from your nose or your mouth because you don't want those aerosolized particles getting into your lungs and causing other problems. And spray for at least 2 minutes all over your body. And I recommend using sunscreen sprays from the neck down if you're someone that wants to use them. Mistake number 12, forgetting to protect your lips. Lips are also prone to skin cancer and sun damage. So try to look for a lip balm or a lipstick that contains SPF in it. That way you'll not only protect your lips from the sun, but you'll also moisturize them. Mistake number 11. Don't put on sunscreen last minute. I see this so often that people just think like, okay, I'm out in the sun, I'm sitting under the rays, now I'll put my sunscreen on. That is the wrong way to do it. Put on sunscreen at least 15 to 20 minutes before you know you're going outside, so it gives it time to absorb and work, and then when you get outside, you'll know you're protected. Mistake number 10. Not choosing the correct sunscreen. And I will share with you in future videos my recommendations for the best sunscreens. And I want to make sure you're choosing a broad spectrum sunscreen. That means it protects you against both UVA rays and UVB rays. UVA rays are the rays that cause premature aging because they disrupt the collagen and elastin in your skin. And UVB rays are the ones that cause blistering burns. Mistake number 9, avoid using expired sunscreen. Expired sunscreen may not provide you with the adequate protection you need. So check the expiration date on that sunscreen and replace it if it's past its prime. Believe it or not, sunscreen has a 3-year shelf life, which is a really long period of time for a sunscreen. But if you're using sunscreen the right way, it shouldn't even be on your shelf for more than a few weeks. Also, I'm sure no one actually reads the instructions on the back of your sunscreen bottle, but it actually says to avoid leaving that bottle in excessive heat because what happens is if you leave your sunscreen in the car or somewhere that gets really hot, it actually can cause the chemicals in the sunscreen to break down and it won't work as well and it will actually expire much faster. So try to avoid putting it in a really hot place. Mistake number 8, skipping sunscreen on cloudy days and ski days. UV rays can still penetrate those clouds and overcast skies. So even if it's not a sunny, hot day, you should still wear your sunscreen. You should wear it 365 days of the year, and no matter what activity you're doing. So let me give you a little example of what happened to myself. Last winter I went skiing and I completely forgot to put on sunscreen in the morning on my face. I came home with a really bad and an embarrassing goggles tan. And actually, as you increase your altitude, so if you're on a ski mountain, the UV rays get stronger and you can end up with really bad burns. So just because you're not on the beach and just because the sun isn't shining and because you're maybe in the snow doesn't mean you can't get burned. Mistake number 7. Don't get confused by what a high SPF really means. An SPF of 100 does not mean you're 100% protected. Unfortunately, there's no sunscreen on the market at this point that 100% protects you from the sun. SPF stands for sun protective factor, and it protects you only against those UVB rays that cause sunburns, not against the UVA rays that cause aging. So let me give you an example. An SPF of 30 means you're protected 97% of the time from those UVA rays. An SPF of 50 protects you 98% from those UVB rays, and then an SPF of 100 protects you 99% of those UVB rays. So the difference between 50 to 100 is very minimal. So I always suggest using a sunscreen at least 30 and above, and SPF 50 is probably the optimal sunscreen you want to aim for. Mistake number 6. Don't think that sunscreen is the only thing you need to do to protect your skin from the sun. You still need to practice sun-safe habits. So what that means is seek shade anytime you can. Try to avoid sun when the rays are the strongest. So usually that means between 10 and 4. And I'm not saying to avoid sun all day long because if you can't go out between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., that's a majority of the day. But if you're planning to go out, then at least wear some protective clothing, and I'll share some of my favorite brands below. And try to look for clothing that has UPF in it, which is a protective factor, and also use sunglasses and wide brim hats. Mistake number 5. Don't mix your sunscreen with other skincare products. So don't take your foundation or your non-tinted SPF 30 sunscreen and mix it with your SPF 50. It doesn't make the SPF stronger, and it actually can disrupt the chemicals in the sunscreen to make your sunscreen less effective. Mistake number 4. Don't rely on your skincare products like your makeup or your moisturizers that contain SPF in them as your source of sun protection. It is not adequate enough. Yes, it will give you some protection against the sun, but it's not enough on its own. You always need to also put your sunscreen on in addition to those products. Mistake number 3, not reapplying your sunscreen. Everyone thinks you start your day with sunscreen, you put it on once, and you're good to go for the rest of the day. Unfortunately, that's just not how it works, and it's not going to give you adequate protection against those UVA and UVB rays. You actually have to reapply sunscreen every 2 hours. And if you're doing an activity where you're sweating or swimming and getting wet or using a towel to rub your body off or your face off, you have to reapply immediately after those activities to get adequate protection. And if your sunscreen says water resistant, that's obviously a plus, but you still need to reapply for maximum protection after that activity that either caused your body to be wet or sweaty. Mistake number 2. Forgetting to apply sunscreen to key areas like your nose, your ears, the back of your neck, and the tops of your feet. Also, for women, I often see aging and sun damage on their chest. So don't forget, when you're wearing your tank tops or your dresses that are low cut, always put the sunscreen on in those areas. And don't be afraid to ask your friend to apply sunscreen to those hard to reach areas like your back. And finally, mistake number 1, not applying an adequate amount of sunscreen. This is the absolute most common mistake I see. People are just not sure how much sunscreen to use, or they're using far too little. So let me go over the appropriate amount that you need to use for adequate protection. So the appropriate amount of sunscreen that you need to adequately cover everything on your body, because you should be applying sunscreen from head to toe, is broken up based on your body surface area. So I like to think of it like this. For your face, you need 1/4 of a teaspoon. So that's actually a nickel size worth of sunscreen. And then for your body, you need at least 1 ounce. And 1 ounce equates to 2 tablespoons or a shot glass worth of sunscreen. So this is how much sunscreen you need for 1 application of your body, and this is how much sunscreen you need for 1 application of your face. It's quite a lot more sunscreen than you probably expect. So if you want to use an SPF of 50, in order to get all SPF 50 worth of that sunscreen on your body and your face, this is how much you need to be applying in just 1 application. And that's a wrap. Go out and have fun in the sun, and don't forget to protect your skin. I'll see you in the next video.